The Millionaire of Rainy Paris. A romantic novel. Part 1. The girl who saw too much. Paris never truly slept. Even at 3 in the morning, when the cafes closed their doors and the laughter faded into echoes along the Seine, the city still breathed, softly, romantically, like a dream refusing to end. Streetlights painted gold across wet cobblestones. The Eiffel Tower shimmered in the distance, blinking like a heartbeat over the city. And beneath that beauty, unnoticed by most people rushing toward their own lives, sat a man everyone ignored. A homeless man. His coat was old, dark, and worn at the sleeves. His beard hid most of his face, and his shoes looked like they had survived decades of rain. He sat near a small bakery on Rue Claire, a paper cup placed quietly beside him. People passed. Some avoided eye contact. Some pretended not to see him at all. Paris loved beauty, not reminders of hardship, except for one person. Chapter 1. Camille. Camille Laurent était de morning. Not because she was lazy, quite the opposite. Her life was simply too heavy for someone only 23 years old. She worked 2 jobs, mornings at a bookstore near Montparnasse and evenings serving coffee at a crowded cafe. Rent in Paris was merciless, dreams were expensive, and reality rarely cared about ambition. Still, she loved the city. She loved the smell of fresh croissants, musicians in the metro, strangers kissing under bridges as if the world belonged only to them. But that morning, rain ruined everything. Cold February rain soaked her coat as she hurried down the street. Late again. Perfect, she muttered. Just perfect. Her umbrella flipped inside out from the wind, forcing her to stop near the bakery, exactly where he sat. The homeless man. She had seen him before. Always quiet, always watching people, not begging loudly like others. There was something different about him. His eyes. They weren't empty. They were observant, intelligent, almost amused. Camille hesitated. She didn't have money to spare. Not really. Every euro mattered. But something made her step closer. Bonjour, she said softly. He looked up, surprised. Most people never greeted him. Bonjour, he replied, his voice calm and educated, unexpectedly refined. Camille blinked. That voice didn't match his appearance at all. She crouched slightly and handed him a warm croissant she had just bought. I can't give much, she said, embarrassed. But nobody should start a rainy day hungry. For a moment, he simply stared at her, not at the food, but at her face as if memorizing it. Thank you, he said quietly. That is more kindness than most give. She smiled awkwardly. Well, have a good day. As she turned to leave, he spoke again. What is your name? She hesitated. Normally, she wouldn't answer strangers. Camille. He nodded slowly. A beautiful name. She laughed nervously and hurried away, unaware that the man watched her disappear into the Paris crowd with an expression that was not gratitude alone. It was recognition. Chapter 2. The Observer. His name was not Pierre, as people sometimes guessed. It was Alexander Moreau, and he was not homeless. Not truly. Alexander picked up the croissant carefully, almost respectfully. Rain tapped softly against the awning above him. For 6 months, he had lived like this, watching, learning, testing something he had begun to doubt: human sincerity. As the CEO of a multinational investment company worth hundreds of millions, Alexander had spent years surrounded by people who smiled only when money entered the room. Friends betrayed him. Partners lied. A fiancé loved his wealth more than his soul. So he disappeared. No assistance, no suites, no luxury penthouse overlooking the Seine. Just Paris and anonymity. Most people revealed themselves quickly. Impatience, disgust, indifference. But the girl, Camille, she gave when she clearly had little. He smiled faintly. Interesting, he murmured. Chapter 3. Coincidences. The next morning, Camille passed the same street again. She told herself she wasn't looking for him, but she slowed down anyway. He was there, reading a book. A real book, not something someone homeless usually carried. The cover was worn, but she recognized it instantly. Victor Hugo, Les Misérables. You read Hugo? She asked before thinking. He looked up, smiling slightly. Is that surprising? A little, she admitted. And you? He asked. Do you read? I work in a bookstore. His eyes lit with genuine interest. Then you live among dreams. She laughed. More like unpaid invoices. They talked for 5 minutes. Then 10. She forgot she was late. He spoke about literature, philosophy, travel, carefully avoiding specifics about himself. His words were thoughtful, poetic even. Nothing about him felt ordinary. When Camille finally checked her phone, she gasped. I'm going to get fired. She rushed away again, laughing. Alexander watched her go, feeling something unfamiliar. Not curiosity, not amusement, warmth. Chapter 4, a different kind of wealth. Days turned into weeks. Camille began bringing him coffee sometimes. Not every day. She couldn't afford that, but whenever she could. They spoke about everything. Why people chase success. Whether happiness is a choice. Why Paris feels loneliest at night. He never asked for money, never complained, and strangely, she never felt afraid around him. One evening, after her cafe shift, she sat beside him longer than usual. I don't understand something, she said. What is that? You don't seem broken. He raised an eyebrow. Should I be? Most people on the street look defeated. But you look like you're just waiting. He smiled slightly. Perhaps I am. For what? He looked at her, really looked. For proof. Proof of what? That kindness still exists. Camille's cheeks warmed. Well, she said softly, you found at least one person. He nodded. Yes, he said quietly. I did. Chapter 5. The Beginning of Change. That night, as Camille walked home across Pont Alexander III, Paris sparkled around her. She realized something strange. She looked forward to seeing him. Not out of pity, not charity, but connection. He listened better than anyone she knew. He never judged her dreams. And when she spoke, he treated her words as if they mattered. For the first time in years, Camille felt seen. Behind her, unseen, a black luxury car slowed briefly at the corner. Inside sat a driver, watching her carefully. Through an earpiece, a voice spoke. Is she the one, sir? Alexander's calm reply came after a pause. Yes. A longer silence followed. Then he added softly, she has no idea who I am. The car drove away into the Paris night. And somewhere between rain and city lights, a story began. One that would soon change both their lives forever. Part 2. The Distance Between Two Worlds. Chapter 6. A Name Without a Past. Camille told herself she was being ridiculous. She barely knew him. He was just a man on the street who happened to speak like someone who had spent time in libraries rather than alleyways. A man who smiled with quiet patience and carried his dignity like a coat no rain could ruin. Still, every morning she found herself glancing down Rue Claire before she even realized she was doing it. And every morning he was there, sitting under the bakery awning as if the city had designed that corner for him alone. That Wednesday, the rain finally stopped. Paris looked freshly washed, the sky a pale gray canvas, the air cold enough to make people pull their scarves tighter. Camille approached with 2 coffees. One for you, she said, offering him the cup. He accepted it with both hands, like it was something precious. You didn't have to, he said. I know, she shrugged. But I wanted to. His eyes held hers a moment longer than usual. Then, thank you, Camille. She sat beside him, her coat brushing the damp stone. What's your name? She asked suddenly. He froze so subtly that most people wouldn't notice. His gaze dropped to the coffee cup as if the answer lived there. For days, he'd avoided it. Not because he feared her knowing his name, because names were threads, and threads led to questions, and questions led to truth. And truth would complicate everything. But she deserved something. Alec, he said finally. Not a lie exactly. A shortened version of Alexander. Safer, lighter. Alec, Camille repeated, tasting it like a new word. It suits you. He smiled faintly. Does it? Yes. It sounds like someone who has traveled. He laughed softly, surprised. And you sound like someone who reads people too well. Camille's cheeks warmed. Maybe I just noticed things. Most people choose not to, he replied. The silence between them was comfortable. It frightened her a little. Chapter 7. The Bookstore Girl. At the bookstore, Camille struggled to focus. Customers asked for novels, and she handed them books mechanically, her mind somewhere else, back on Rue Claire, back to the quiet way Alec watched Paris, as if the city belonged to him and also didn't. Her co-worker, Lucy, leaned against the counter with an amused expression. "You're smiling." Camille blinked. "No, I'm not." Lucy raised an eyebrow. "You are. It's terrifying." Camille rolled her eyes. "I'm Fina." "Liar." Lucy grinned. "Who is he?" Camille nearly dropped a stack of paperbacks. "What? Who?" Lucy leaned in. "You've been drifting all week. You look like someone who has a secret." Camille hesitated. She had told no one about Alec. Partly because she didn't want Lucy's judgment, partly because it felt private, like something delicate that could shatter if too many people touched it. "There's no," Camille said too quickly. Lucy smirked. "Sure." Camille sighed. "There's someone I talk to sometimes." "Oh." Lucy's eyes sparkled. "Finally. Is he cute?" "It's not like that." Lucy laughed. "That's exactly what people say when it is like that." Camille looked away. The truth was, she didn't know what it was. But she knew one thing: it mattered. Chapter 8. Dinner Without a Table. A few nights later, Camille finished her cafe shift late. Her feet ached, her hair smelled like espresso, and her pockets were almost empty. She considered going straight home, but her legs carried her to Rue Claire like a habit. Alec was still there, under the street lamp. He looked like a painting, shadow and light mixed together. He was writing in a small notebook. Camille stopped. "You're still awake." He looked up. "So are you." She smiled faintly and sat beside him, pulling her scarf tighter. "What are you writing?" she asked. He hesitated. "A list." "A list of what?" "Things I've learned." Camille's curiosity sparked. "About Paris?" He looked at her. "About people." That answer made her heart squeeze. She studied his face in the soft light. There were lines near his eyes that didn't belong to someone truly broken. They belonged to someone who had laughed often once. Someone who had lived. "Are you hungry?" she asked quietly. He shook his head, but she heard the lie in it. Camille exhaled. "I can't take you to a restaurant," she said, "but I can steal some food from my job. The croissants that didn't sell, the sandwiches they would throw away." His gaze sharpened. "You would steal from me?" "It's not stealing if they're going to trash it," she argued, though her voice was soft. Alec's expression changed. Something almost painful flickered across it. "You shouldn't risk trouble for a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore," Camille said before she could stop herself. The words hung in the cold air. Alec looked away as if the sentence had touched something inside him that he'd tried to keep buried. Camille felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean—" "I'm not offended," he interrupted gently. His voice was quieter now. "I'm surprised." "What?" "Because I forgot what it felt like when someone decided you mattered." Camille swallowed. That night, they ate sandwiches on the sidewalk under the street lamp like it was a dinner table made of stone and Paris itself was their ceiling. And Camille laughed, truly laughed, more than she had in months. Chapter 9. The First Crack in the Mask. Alec wasn't careless. He knew how to act like the world expected him to act. He knew how to blend into shadows. But small things betrayed him. It started with his hands. His nails were too clean for someone who lived on the street. His posture was too straight, like someone trained to hold himself with confidence. And sometimes, only sometimes, he glanced at expensive places with familiarity instead of longing. Camille noticed. She always noticed. One morning, she arrived earlier than usual and found him standing, talking to an older man in a long black coat. The man looked official, like a lawyer or an assistant. Camille froze across the street. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw the older man hand Alec an envelope. Alec's face hardened instantly. The softness he showed Camille vanished, replaced by something sharp, controlled, powerful. Camille's stomach flipped. Before she could move, Alec noticed her. Their eyes met. For a second, panic flashed in his gaze. Then the older man followed Alec's stare and turned to look at Camille. Camille felt suddenly exposed, like she had walked into a scene she wasn't meant to see. She stepped backward and hurried away, heart pounding. Behind her, Alec's voice cut through the air. "Camille!" But she didn't stop. Chapter 10. Questions in the Rain. Camille spent the whole day with a knot in her chest. Who was that man? Why did Alec look like a completely different person? When she returned to Rue Claire that evening, Alec was there, alone, sitting in the same spot as always. But his expression was tense, his notebook closed, his shoulders stiff. Camille approached slowly. Alec. He looked up, and his eyes softened at once, but behind the softness was fear. You saw, he said quietly. Camille's voice trembled. Who was that? A person from my past, he answered carefully. You have a past, she said, not meaning it cruelly, but the words came out sharp. His jaw tightened slightly. Everyone does. Camille hugged her coat around herself. I thought you were just what? He asked gently. Just someone who had nothing. His eyes didn't leave hers. And if I wasn't? Camille's breath caught. That single question broke something open inside her. Because the truth was she didn't know how to answer. Would she still sit beside him if he wasn't what she believed? Would she still bring him coffee if he didn't need it? She stared at him, rain beginning again, soft drops tapping the street like a slow heartbeat. I don't understand you, she whispered. Alec's voice was low, almost pleading. Then let me explain, just not here. Camille hesitated. Where? Alec looked around, then stood. There's a place, he said quietly. Somewhere nearby. Safe. Dry. Camille's pulse jumped. It was crazy. It was dangerous. But something in his eyes, something honest, stopped her fear from winning. She nodded once. Okay. Alec exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. Then come with me. And together, they walked into the rainy Paris night, toward a truth Camille never imagined. Part 3, Behind the Curtain. Chapter 11, The Door She Never Expected. Rain followed them through Paris like a silent witness. Camille walked beside Alec, her thoughts louder than the traffic around them. Every step felt unreal. She had never gone anywhere with him beyond their small corner on Rue Claire. Now he walked with certainty, not like someone wandering, like someone returning. They crossed wider streets, past elegant boutiques glowing with warm light, and stopped in front of a building Camille had only ever admired from afar, a historic Haussmann-style residence with tall, iron doors and marble steps. Camille slowed. Alec, I think we're in the wrong place. He turned toward her. We're not. Her stomach tightened. This is a luxury building. Yes. She stared at him, waiting for the joke. It never came. Instead, Alec approached the entrance. The concierge inside immediately stood straighter upon seeing him. Bonsoir, monsieur. Alec raised a subtle hand, stopping him before he finished the sentence. The concierge nodded respectfully, understanding instantly. Camille felt the world tilt. The doors opened without question. She didn't move. Alec, she whispered, what is this? He looked at her gently. The truth. After a long moment, she followed him inside. Chapter 12, The Elevator. The lobby smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume. Marble floors reflected golden chandeliers above them. Camille suddenly became painfully aware of her worn shoes and simple coat. She felt like an intruder. The concierge avoided looking directly at Alec, but clearly recognized him. Respect radiated through every movement. The elevator doors opened silently. Inside, Camille finally spoke. You come here often? Alec almost smiled at the attempt at humor. I live here. The words hit harder than shouting. Camille laughed nervously. No, stop joking. I'm not joking. The elevator began to rise. Floor numbers lit one by one. Camille's heartbeat matched each number. Then the street, the clothes, everything. He exhaled slowly. Yes. The elevator stopped to the top floor. The doors opened to a private hallway. Alec hesitated before stepping out, as if crossing this threshold meant losing something he wasn't ready to lose. Please, he said softly, let me explain before you decide what to think of me. Camille didn't answer. She simply followed. Chapter 13, The Penthouse. The door opened into a space that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Paris glowing at night. The Eiffel Tower shimmered in the distance. Modern art decorated clean white walls. Soft lights illuminated bookshelves larger than her entire apartment. Camille stopped breathing. This wasn't wealth. This was another universe. She whispered. You live here? Yes. Her voice rose. But you sleep on the street. By choice. She turned sharply toward him. Why would anyone choose that? Alec removed his coat slowly, revealing a perfectly tailored shirt beneath. Simple, but unmistakably expensive. Because I needed to know something. What? If people could care about me without knowing who I am. Silence filled the room. Camille felt heat rise behind her eyes. So, I was an experiment? She asked quietly. No, his voice was immediate. Never. But you lied. I hid the truth. That's the same thing. Her words echoed through the penthouse. Alex stepped closer but kept distance, respecting her anger. I didn't expect to meet you, he said honestly. At first, everyone treated me exactly how I expected. Invisible, annoyed, afraid. And me? She asked, her voice trembling. You changed everything. Camille shook her head, overwhelmed. You let me believe you had nothing. I had nothing that mattered, he replied softly. She laughed bitterly. You're a millionaire. His gaze darkened slightly. And I have never felt poorer. Chapter 14. The Man Behind the Mask. Camille walked toward the window, trying to breathe. Paris stretched endlessly below her, beautiful, distant, unreal. You should have told me, she said quietly. I was afraid. Of what? That once you knew, you would see me differently. She turned. And now? He didn't answer immediately. Now I'm afraid I've already lost you. His honesty disarmed her anger for a moment. She studied him carefully. Without the worn coat, without the disguise, Alec looked completely different, confident, composed, powerful. But his eyes were the same, still gentle, still searching hers like they mattered. What do you actually do? She asked. He hesitated. I run an investment company. Camille laughed softly in disbelief. Of course you do. He walked to a table and handed her a tablet displaying a financial article. Alexander Moreau, one of Europe's youngest self-made millionaires. Her knees nearly gave out. Alec, she whispered. My real name is Alexander. The room spun. The man she shared sandwiches with under a street lamp owned more money than she could imagine. Suddenly, every memory replayed differently in her mind. His posture, his words, his calm confidence, the way people unconsciously respected him. She felt foolish and strangely hurt. Chapter 15. The Choice. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, Camille spoke. Why me? Alexander answered without hesitation. Because you gave when you had nothing to gain. She looked down. I thought you needed help. I did, he said quietly. Just not the way you believed. She crossed her arms, conflicted. I don't know how to feel. That's fair. I like talking to you because you were real. His voice softened. I was never more real than when I was with you. She searched his face for manipulation, but found none. Only vulnerability. Something powerful shifted inside her. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding beginning to grow. I need time, she said. Alexander nodded immediately. Take all the time you need. She moved toward the door. Before leaving, she paused. One question. Anything. Was any of it real? His answer came quietly but firmly. Every moment with you was real. Camille held his gaze a long second. Then she left. The door closed softly behind her. For the first time since becoming one of the richest men in Paris, Alexander Moreau felt completely powerless. Chapter 16. Shadows Watching. Across the street, a black car waited. Inside sat a woman dressed elegantly, her expression cold as she watched Camille exit the building. She spoke in her phone. So, she said calmly, Alexander finally found someone. A pause. Her lips curved into a thin smile. That complicates things. She watched Camille disappear into the night. Prepare everything, she added softly. It's time you remembered who he really is. The call ended, and somewhere beneath Paris's romance, danger quietly awakened. Part 4. Hearts Don't Understand Logic. Chapter 17. Silence Between Them. Paris felt colder the next morning. Not because of the weather. The sun actually shone for the first time in days, but because Camille avoided Rue Claire entirely. She changed her route to work. Longer streets, different cafes, different sounds, anything to avoid seeing him. But avoidance didn't erase memories. Every corner reminded her of conversations. Every bakery smell reminded her of mornings shared over cheap coffee and honest laughter. She tried to be angry. He lied. He pretended. He watched her kindness without telling the truth. And yet, he never mocked her, never used her, never treated her like she was small. That confused her more than anything. At the bookstore, she miscounted change twice. Lucy noticed immediately. Okay, her coworker said, crossing her arms. You either committed a crime or fell in love. Camille sighed heavily. Neither. Lucy waited. Camille finally whispered, he's rich. Lucy blinked. That's usually good news. No, Camille said quietly. You don't understand. I thought he was homeless. Lucy stared. What? And suddenly Camille found herself telling everything. The street, the conversations, the penthouse, the truth. When she finished, Lucy leaned back slowly. That sounds like a movie. It feels like a mistake, Camille replied. Lucy studied her carefully. Do you still like him? Camille opened her mouth to deny it. But nothing came out. Chapter 18, A Man Without Peace. Across Paris, Alexander stood alone in his penthouse. The silence felt heavier than any boardroom negotiation he had ever faced. He hadn't gone back to Rue Claire. For the first time since starting his experiment, he didn't know where he belonged. His assistant, Henri, stood nearby holding a tablet. You have 3 canceled meetings already, sir. Reschedule them. They were already rescheduled twice. Alexander didn't respond. Henri hesitated before speaking again. She hasn't returned? Alexandre's jaw tightened. No, Henri nodded slowly. I warned you this might happen. I know. You crossed worlds that rarely mix. Alexander stared out toward the Eiffel Tower. I didn't plan to care. Henri allowed himself a small smile. No one ever plans that. Chapter 19, The Woman from Before. That evening, Alexander attended a charity gala he couldn't avoid. Elegant dresses filled the ballroom. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Wealth and influence moved through the room like a quiet current. He hated it. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every conversation calculated. Then he heard a familiar voice. I was wondering how long you would hide. Alexander turned. Isabelle Laurent. Tall, flawless, confident. His former fiancée. The woman who once nearly married him. Her smile was beautiful but sharp enough to cut. You look surprised, she said. I wasn't expecting you in Paris. I always return when something interesting happens. Her eyes studied him carefully. I heard rumors, she continued. You disappeared. Lived like a ghost. Alexander remained calm. Rumors exaggerate. Do they? She asked softly. Or did you finally grow tired of people loving your money instead of you? He said nothing. Isabelle stepped closer. And now, she added quietly, there's a girl. His expression hardened instantly. That's none of your concern. Her smile widened slightly. Oh, but it is. Investors talk. Staff talk. Your driver talks. Alexander's voice dropped. Leave her out of this. That reaction told Isabelle everything she needed to know. Interesting. Very interesting. Chapter 20, Missing Something. Camille returned home exhausted. Her tiny apartment felt smaller than usual. She tried reading. Couldn't focus. Tried watching videos. Nothing helped. Finally, she admitted the truth she'd been avoiding. She missed him. Not the millionaire. Not the penthouse. The man who listened. The man who treated conversations like treasures. The man who sat beside her in the rain without pretending to be better than anyone. She grabbed her coat before she could change her mind. I'm just walking, she told herself. But her feet already knew where they were going. Chapter 21, The Empty Corner. Rue Claire looked the same. The bakery lights glowed warmly. People passed by as always. But the corner was empty. No golden coat. No notebook. No quiet presence watching the city. Camille's chest tightened unexpectedly. She stood there longer than she meant to. The baker stepped outside to close for the night and noticed her. You're looking for the quiet man? He asked kindly. Camille hesitated. Yes. Haven't seen him for days. Her stomach dropped. Oh, he seemed like a good person, the baker added. Polite. Different. Camille nodded silently. As she turned to leave, regret settled heavily in her chest. Maybe she had walked away too quickly. Chapter 22, Collision. The next evening, rain returned. Paris blurred under silver reflections. Camille hurried across a street near the Seine when suddenly a car stopped sharply beside her. The window lowered. Inside sat Isabelle. Elegant, perfect, dangerous. "Camille Laurent?" she asked calmly. Camille froze. "Do I know you?" Isabelle smiled politely. "No, but I know Alexander." The name sent a shock through her. "What do you want?" "To talk." "I'm not interested." Isabelle's voice remained smooth. "You should be, because you're standing in the middle of a world you don't understand." Camille crossed her arms defensively. "And you do. I belong to it." A pause. Then Isabelle delivered the sentence carefully. "Men like Alexander don't fall in love with girls like you." The words hit harder than Camille expected. She forced herself to stay calm. "You don't know anything about me." Isabelle tilted her head. "I know enough to protect him from mistakes." Camille's anger finally ignited. "I'm not a mistake." Isabelle studied her quietly. "We'll see." The car window rose. The vehicle drove away. Camille stood alone in the rain, heart racing. For the first time, she realized something terrifying. Alexander's world wasn't just different. It was dangerous. Chapter 23, The Message. Later that night, Alexander sat alone when his phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. She came back to Rue Claire. He stood instantly. Another message followed. "If you still care, go find her." He didn't hesitate. Within seconds, he grabbed his coat and left the penthouse. Not as a millionaire, not as a businessman, just as a man afraid of losing someone important. Outside, Paris rain fell endlessly. And somewhere in that city, two hearts moved toward each other again, while someone else quietly planned to tear them apart.